from the March 16th meeting. And we'll do it page by page. Anybody got comments on the first page? I have one. Where it says also attending, it doesn't show Kerry Gates. Okay. Anything on page 2?
I have a couple of things, and I want to make a comment here that I've cleared this with Gary. I have a number of just punctuation, no substance, but commas and so forth. And I'm going to give my notes to Jim at the end of the meeting. Anything of substance I will mention. But other than that, I'll give this to Jim, and he will correct the punctuation, if that's okay. I do have another comment. Under 3, Water District feedback, Kay Gates projected a letter from the Water District. Is projected the right word? 3 down on page 2, number 3 down. Is it presented?
I think it's because it was projected up on the TV. She showed it up on the television.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Page 3. Page 4.
I had one more question. Third paragraph down that begins, G. Dugas asked to see the grading plan, and C. Osterreiter circulated the grading plan which applicants had supplied copies of to the meeting. And I wasn't sure what that meant. First sentence.
The applicant handed me and Chris copies of their stormwater report and their grading plan at the meeting, and then Chris handed them out
Okay.
at the beginning of the meeting. She had
Great.
handed, so I'm not sure if you were here at the beginning when she handed them out, maybe.
Oh, maybe not.
And then Chris cycled them down through the board members.
And in the next paragraph, C. Osterreiter said that according to the plan scale, there are 17 feet, and not is. That's all I have. On page 4, yeah.
Page 5. Page 6. I've got one. On the 5th paragraph down, starts with K. Collins asked. The second line, it's got G. Dumas instead of G. Dugas.
This, goodness.
Page 7. Page 8. And I've got it, maybe it's more of a question, but, or maybe I don't remember it right, but if I go to the 3rd paragraph up from the bottom, it says there was a brief lapse as Miss Gates left the meeting room to speak with the attendees who had left. I think that was Collins. That was the attorney that went out.
No, it
Oh,
wasn't.
no,
No.
no.
She went out.
No,
Mrs. Gates.
Mrs. Gase.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mrs.
Okay.
Gates.
She was.
Yep.
That's all right. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11.
I have a question and then, actually two questions. The middle of the page where it says A. Cole questioned whether the board's approval could be granted, Kay Gates interjected that she could not obtain bank financing, et cetera. She insisted that she had until June 1st to have this board's approval, and I thought the date was earlier than June 1st. I thought it was April 1st.
Yeah,
Is that? Yeah, may I ask her right here?
Sure.
yes, that's
Right here.
correct. April 1st.
April 1st. Okay. And down at the bottom of the page, or someplace in there where we are talking about the ECHO roster, I asked Ms. Gates if the Historic Preservation Commission had approved ECHO roster. And I think she said, no, but it's on the next agenda of the Historic Planning Commission. I think that's what you said. Is that correct? That I just need what you said at the meeting. I think you said you. Okay. Okay. I know that I asked that, but it's okay. That's
Page
it.
11.
Yep.
Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Page 15. And page 16. Somebody want to make a motion to approve these as amended? You have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Next item on the agenda is 135 Port Road. You want to introduce that, Brittany, or?
So this project was before the board on March 16th for the preliminary meeting. There was an issue with the noticing, so this meeting was already scheduled with the board, so we suggested that they renotice for a secondary preliminary meeting that would be held this evening. This will sort of be a repeat of the meeting that was held on the 16th, as no new information is going to be presented to the board because this is their preliminary meeting. So this project was before the board on December 15th for feedback regarding off-site parking. The site had been most recently used for Market Day. They were going to do an office space, but that never came to fruition with the issues with COVID and all of those things that never moved forward. The applicant addressed preliminary comments in a March 3rd email that I sent. In their response letter, they addressed all those comments and updated the plans. There were a few outstanding items. The front view of the building, ground floor elevations, I do believe they have some of those this evening, as they did on the meeting on the 16th. They need to show driveways within 200 feet, which I believe they went over at the last meeting as well. Front view and dimensions of existing and proposed signs. There was not a design submitted. This could be reviewed by the code officer if the board deems that as part of their approval. Lighting, the applicant states they're going to use existing lighting on the site. They are not proposing any new lighting. Parking areas shall be separated from the building by a landscape strip of at least 5 feet. They were going to request a waiver from this. Their existing driveway is within 200 feet of any intersections, but it's in existing driveway, and they're not proposing any changes to it. They also are looking for a waiver for on-site walkways that abut a parking area with a planting strip from at least 2 feet. They are doing some off-site parking, so they did supply an aerial showing where their off-street parking is going to be for that reduction. And they do still have to supply legal documentation saying that they can have parking at another property. And I think that's pretty much everything the board went over at that last meeting, so I can turn it over to Henry from Sebago, who's representing the property.
Good evening, members of the board. It's good to see you again. Appreciate you hearing us at our preliminary meeting here. The project, as Brittany described, it's going to be taking advantage of an existing building that's already on the site there. You can see on the kind of northwesterly side. It'll be renovating that existing building in place. It's about 2,200 square feet, square foot building. The existing outdated septic and grease trap is actually going to be removed from the site in place of actually connecting to a sewer force main for the proposed restaurant that's going to be going on site, as that'll be a little bit more amenable to their uses there. The existing 1-inch water line right now is proposed to be used. It's going to suffice for their uses on site as well. So they'll just propose to continue using that existing service. Currently, power comes in from overhead to the building. The project's proposing to continue to use that power, as they're not really proposing any new buildings and new infrastructure on top of that. They'd just like to continue using the existing power to the building. The site previously was approved with about 11 spaces on it. The parking is going to be reconfigured within the existing impervious footprint to actually fit 12 parking spaces on it, as well as allow, it's proposing 2 spaces within the right-of-way as discussed at the sketch plan application. That will be for public parking as well for Kennebunk. They will be maintained in snow removal by the applicant, actually, because I believe our initial round of comments that we're working on responding to, Public Works would like the applicant to maintain those 2 spaces as if they were theirs, but they will be public. There will be a new dumpster proposed on site that will have 6-foot screening and some landscaping in front of it as well to just hide the dumpster. The use for the restaurant is intended to be about 100 seats with some seasonality to it. So that 100 seats would really be between, right now it's anticipated between Memorial Day and Labor Day as kind of that peak for when they would really need all those 100 seats. And then come the fall and winter months, it would be more like a 60-seat restaurant. That deck would be closed and really just using the interior space. The parking for the site, in order to meet that parking demand, they are looking for they're looking for 6 spaces off-site right now. They are still working through those agreements, and we'll certainly be sharing those with the board before before a public hearing, so that the board and staff have time to see those and review them to make sure that the agreements are in place and the board is comfortable with those. We are still working through some of the response to comments, as Brittany indicated, such as showing I believe we were showing one of the driveways, I think Buffalo Head Cove, but we didn't label it, so we'll make sure that that's labeled on the site plans before we come back for a public hearing and the board has time to review. There's some extensive landscaping proposed, not only to provide an aesthetic value around the deck proposed out back for the restaurant, but again to help screen the dumpster enclosure and to help along the edges. That there is some grading proposed along there's some grading proposed along the parking lot edge closest to the property line to the rear, that kind of longest, I guess the hypotenuse of the property there. Adjacent to the wetlands. The property is proposing to grade pretty tight, about 2 to 1, or sorry, the project is proposing to grade 2 to 1 next to that parking lot with a guardrail to protect cars and to make sure we're not impacting the wetlands. So all the drainage will be continuing in the same direction as it does today. It actually does flow that direction, kind of towards that bank of about 8 parking spaces there on the long side. Proposed grading is going to keep a lot of that existing drainage, and overall it's actually going to be about a 900 square foot impervious reduction. So we're reducing the impervious footprint, increasing the parking, and looking to stay out of the wetlands through there. We have a little coordination to do with some with utilities such as sewer, with the sewer district, as well as with Chris Osterreiter and staff for some of the engineering review on there for locating that force main appropriately. But with that, I could certainly, that's the meat of the project there. I'd certainly look to turn it back over to the board for any comments, questions, and be happy to answer them.
I have a question. Can you explain how you get your power? Is it from an overhead pole across the street?
Correct. Yeah, there's a overhead pole. Brittany, if you go, probably the utility and grading plan is probably the best sheet to show. There's an existing overhead line that comes off the north corner of the building there and goes, it actually connects to the pole across the street. So that's currently how the building has power, and they'll propose to continue using that power.
Can I ask, do we require developers to go underground?
On brand new construction, that typically is a requirement on buildings that are existing. If the applicant wants to go under, we encourage it, but we don't require an underground hookup if it's existing.
It's a new use. I mean, I know it's an existing building, but I always like to see improvements in utilities. I'd love to get rid of all the utility poles. So it's an option for him?
So on brand new construction, it's required to go underground. On existing construction that already have sewer and water connections, they're not required to change unless they had to upgrade for, like, say, a sprinkler system or something like that.
Okay.
Brittany, where this is a sort of a redo of our first meeting, are we allowed to ask questions based on the site walk, which happened after the?
I'd like to keep it to what was submitted for this application, but I mean,
Okay.
we're not doing another site walk, so I think if something came up at the site walk and you'd like to ask a question, I think that's fair, just because this was done out
No,
of order, but,
My question doesn't have to be asked tonight. I can wait.
okay.
And I don't remember any of the questions I asked before, so
They're in the minutes.
yeah, that's true. Anybody else got questions? Or,
I guess I would have one question for the board and Brittany. As we are kind of doing the meeting the second time here, is there a need to vote again on the complete application at this meeting?
So I would advise the board to, vote on it as a complete application or complete for preliminary review, and then re-vote on setting a public hearing date if April 20th still works for the applicant, or if the board still works with April 20th, if they want to change that date to their regularly scheduled meeting in May.
okay,
I'd be happy to offer that. I know we're still working through some of the parking agreements, and our date for submittal would be today for the public hearing on the 20th. So I'd be comfortable if that moved to the next public hearing, so we could actually have that vetted out and reviewed comfortably for the board and staff.
so that would be moved to our May meeting, you mean?
If that's amenable to the board, I'd be comfortable with that.
So Brittany, what you suggest is that we vote on that it is complete for a preliminary hearing? Okay. I will make that motion.
Any more discussion? All in favor? And that's unanimous. So,
The next thing would be set a public hearing date,
Right. and
which,
the applicant is indicating they want to do it in May, which is fine with me, but I'm not going to be here.
So May 18th would be the meeting date.
I'm going to be out of town. But you guys can meet without me.
That's a normal meeting date, yep.
Should we consider doing it a week before?
The only problem is I don't have the meeting calendar. Planning, Select Board, HPC, and Charter Commission meet that week. I don't think anything meets on the 11th. The first week in May is usually, would be pretty open, similar to this first week of April.
That would give us another
I'd give you a month.
another week and a
If
half.
I'm looking
to-
at April, I'm sorry, May, the weekend of May 1st.
Yeah, that would be the 1st of May, you're saying?
Yeah, May 1st, May 2nd, May 3rd, that week.
Yep. Yep, that's the Thursday's the 1st. Oh, no,
Uh,
I'm sorry, Thursday's the 4th.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
misread my calendar, thank you.
I'm
Jumped
not
ahead.
sure what the board's availability would be that week.
I am Albert. Keith? So we have 4. That's better than 3.
I'm just trying to pull up the town calendar. It's not showing anything that week, so I don't think we'd be stuck to that Thursday. If there's a better night that week that works for everybody. I can also peek my head in and check with Michael, because he also does the televised meetings if he knows of anything that first week. The 4th would be best, as Oz speaks. So May 4th would work for you?
May 4th?
Yeah, we're in May.
Why don't we do that then? Can you do, we'll do
Yep.
the public hearing on the 4th.
That'd be wonderful. That would give us an extra week or two to get those agreements in order and get them to you in time to have for review and make sure that they're copacetic for the board and staff.
I would just suggest, though, the notice that we had sent out, I did say an anticipated meeting on April 20th. So if
Yep.
I could get those notices out to you tomorrow, that those go out as soon as possible, just to let people know that that date has changed.
Absolutely. We can get those out in the coming week.
Yeah, and I will, like I said, that first week usually isn't an issue. I know there's a ZBA meeting on the 18th of April. I'll confirm with the clerk's office tomorrow, but usually that first week of the month, they don't have any conflicts, so, usually. I don't want to jinx myself.
All right, so we've got the complete submission and we've got the public hearing set. I believe we're all set.
Thank you. We'll see you on the 4th. Appreciate your time.
Anything else we have to do tonight?
I don't have anything else on the agenda, no.
And do we have anything on the agenda for the 20th?
The only thing on the agenda was this scheduled public hearing from the preliminary meeting that was misnoticed, but I will still post an agenda for the April 20th meeting, just for anybody that had been paying attention, saying that it's been moved to May 4th, just so it's clear for everybody. Yep. Oh, I didn't even think of that. It is school vacation week. Yep, but I will make sure to post an agenda for the 20th, just in case. That's what I did for one of the planning board meetings where the public hearing was moved.
Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Any more discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. So see you all on the 4th.